Welcome back to another episode of Unfiltered Romance Nights. We are your hosts, Colleen.
I'm Marjorie. Today's episode, we have Canadian romance author and poet T.L. Hodel. When she's not writing, she occupies herself with numerous crafts, hobbies, and is an avid gamer. She lives in Calgary with her kids and may have a slight weakness for horror movies. Welcome to the Unfiltered Romance Nights podcast, and we are so excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here. And I have to say, you're the first American I've met that has said Calgary properly and not pronounced the second A.
Oh, really?
Thank you. So before we take a deep dive into your books, we have a few questions to kind of get to know you better.
Okay. So how did you get started with your writing journey? And did you or do you have another career other than that?
I don't. I'm a full-time writer. I got started with writing, actually. I've always written, but I had a jaded view of romance because I grew up with Harley Quinn and V.C. Andrews, so I didn't know dark romance was a thing until I read one, and then I'm like, oh, wait, I can write what I want to. And then that's kind of how it happened.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Now, you had published poetry, right? Did you have poetry that was published?
I did. I had a few poems that were published in like poetry collection books years ago.
Wow, that's amazing.
Well, I was gonna ask, so did you publish like poetry first before you switched to dark romance?
I did, yeah. I used to, it actually started, I'd enter like poetry contests online. There was this one site where they'd give you like so many words and you had to write a poem, and I'd do it just for fun. And then they published a poem, and a couple of other places published other poems, and I never thought about writing a romance novel because I'm old. So, you're always told that writing isn't a lucrative career. It's hard to get into. And I didn't know indie publishing was a thing until I found my first dark romance book.
Yeah, I think that's how I felt too. It's like I didn't know like a lot about self-published authors until TikTok, when they're like, oh, try this stuff. Because all I knew was like what's in, the bookstore or Target or anything like the bookshelves. That's all where I would go, like Barnes and Noble. That's where I find books that would interest me. And then, pandemic, TikTok, and it was like Kindle Unlimited is a thing. And it was like, okay, downloading this, and just went down that rabbit hole and never looked back.
That's how it happened to me too. Yeah, I had no idea that indie publishing was a thing.
Yeah. So, kind of like out of left field, do you have like a favorite TV show or movies or anything like that?
That's hard. I'm a big fan of Supernatural.
Okay.
Me too.
Yep. That's done now. I've been watching Silo. That's an interesting show. It's kind of like post-apocalyptic, and I'm waiting anxiously for the new season of Euphoria.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I watched a few of those episodes.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've only seen clips.
From TikTok, probably.
Yeah.
Oh, nope. There is a show. It's called Lie to Me.
Oh, yes.
That is the closest show I have found to dark romance that I read out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Agreed.
I have it on my watch list, so
good. I aspire to
right?
write a jerk like Steven one day.
Yeah. I heard it's like he's very manipulative, and So I was like, oh, it's a typical dark romance MMC.
There's really no good people in that show, and the people you think are good aren't by the time you finish season 2. So yeah, it's all the drama.
Yeah. I think that since, I know I could be wrong, but since Book Talk, all of a sudden there's all these shows and movies like emulating these dark romances, and I love it. Because sometimes maybe I want to take a break from reading. I want to watch it.
Yeah, I do too. Find that a lot. They have like, that Maxton Hall came out recently, right? They have a lot of shows like that, which I think is fabulous because we like reading them, so why not watch them?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I think like the closest before like I like looking back now, I think the closest would have been Gossip Girl just because of how they acted. It's like kind of close to, you know, they're not over that line, but
there were a few movies like Cruel Intentions and Fear with
I didn't think of that.
Mark Wahlberg. Yeah, there were a few movies, but not very often.
Right.
Because they're not really received like well like before back in, you know, years ago. But now it's almost like, oh, you know, we're kind of normal, but not really normal, but like in the fantasy world, not that they're gonna survive those stuff.
That's what I tell people. All the guys in my books would be in jail in real life, so you're not going to find anyone like them.
Seriously.
Yeah.
You said Supernatural was one of your favorite TV shows. Dean or Sam?
Oh, Dean, 100%. That's not even a question. Dean.
I feel bad for Sam. Like, I mean, I'm a Dean girl too. So, but yeah.
I think the only season I liked Sam a little more was when he was soulless Sam for a little bit. Yeah. And then Dean won again.
No, I mean, yeah, I agree with that because I think Sam is more of like the let's think about it first before we do stuff kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now I'm really going to put you on the spot here.
I'm so sorry. You can't do that. Thanks, I can edit stuff.
Yeah, right. That scared me because I was looking down.
I know. I'm just like, no, I could feel them over there behind me. Go for it.
Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot, and you have to answer it.
Okay.
Who would you say is your favorite author?
Romance author?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Ooh, that's a toss-up between two.
All right, I'll let you have two.
Okay, Amo Jones and B.B. Reed.
Oh, okay. What did B.B. Reed? What did she write?
She did I can't remember the name of the series. Fear Me was the first dark romance book I read. And she had the When Rivals Play, Lilac. She just had
okay, so I read it. Okay. It was like, it sounds familiar. Yes. Good choices. Those were good.
I still need to read Amo Jones stuff. I have like her books, but I'm like, I need to get through.
My God,
you haven't read any?
No, not yet.
Midnight Mayhem would be my suggestion. I love that series. I like the Elite Kings Club series, but I yelled at Maddie to read that damn journal too much in that series.
That's funny.
So I know you said you've read, like, you know, you read dark romance. Do you have like a favorite subgenre under dark romance that you like to read?
I like bully, which is probably why I write a lot of bully. Yeah. Or mafia. One of the two.
Good choices.
I know, like, some of my favorites too. I'm like, those are my like go-to. I think with bully they just hit different. Like, you know, like it's that asshole MMC, the like popular hot guy, and then, you know,
I like the dynamic. It's a different kind of dynamic. I think, and there's enemies to lovers, and then there's bully, which is kind of enemies to lovers, but it's kind of like a subset genre of enemies to lovers. Yeah.
They're just like action packs, especially if they're like the setting is like high school or college, so they're kind of like immature at that. So it's just more drama in it.
Yes.
Which is it's always fun, especially when, you know, the MMC finally like, yes, I love you kind of thing, and I will burn the world for you kind of.
Yes.
I'm hoping to see that in book 3. No, don't tell me. Well, all right. We'll get there. Now, when did you first decide to write dark romance, and what was the inspiration for that?
Well, I always liked dark. All the other stories I'd written before were dark, either horror or some kind of paranormal. I haven't published any of them, but I'm working maybe one. But so the dark romance kind of appealed to me because I could put the whole romance and, spicy scenes factor in with the darkness. I like the gritty realism you can kind of get in dark romance that you don't get in sweet romance because people are messed up.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Yeah. So I actually wrote, after Effect, my first books. I read a bunch of bully books, and I got mad that the bully was suddenly a nice guy at the end. And I'm like, why can't he be an asshole like he was in the beginning at the end? And that's why I wrote After Effect.
Yeah. And then some people call that character growth when they turn nice. I'm like, well,
they don't. People don't change that much.
A leopard doesn't change its spots. That's what my mom always said.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's like, for me, like, yes, there's the character development, like, more or less towards the FMC, because otherwise it's not going to be a romance. But, like, to completely 360 him, we're like, all of a sudden, he's the nicest guy in the world. Like, that's not what we fell in love with that character.
No, it's not. And people fall in love with assholes all the time. Yeah.
To me, like, when it's a character development, more of like, okay, I would do something like, like when they have to grovel, like I will do something that for her, but not, I don't care about everybody else.
Yeah.
Just her. That's when I feel like that's when it is. It's a perfect example where, like, if it's a morally black character where they're like, are they even redeemable at some point? But they make that grand gesture.
Yes.
Like, okay, he does her, or there is that where you're looking for sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what you need. They can still be an asshole, but not as much of an asshole to her at the end of the book. Yeah.
So this would be an interesting question. Do your friends and family kind of know that you write dark romance? And if so, have they read any, or what did their reaction, I guess?
I have an interesting story for this. They do. I don't have a pen name. I just initialed my first name, T.L. My aunt actually started reading all of the books and fell in love with my first series and took it to church group. So I had a bunch of older women at one point praying for my soul. Church group. Yeah. Yeah. She told me, I'm like, that's not the place to take it up. No.
I get that. I cringe. My neighbor just asked me for a book rec, and I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
I had my daughter, my kids go to Catholic school. So when my daughter was in grade 4, I want to say, I went in for parent-teacher interviews, and the teacher was saying, oh, your daughter says you're an author. Would you come and talk to the class? I'm like, you don't want me to do that. This is what I write. You're a Catholic school. No.
I love it.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, like, what I have a friend, like, she loves to read romance, but more of, like, very fluffy, like the Nicholas Sparks. And she'll ask me, oh, have any recommendations? Like, no, I'm the wrong person to ask for recommendations, just because Nicholas Sparks versus what I'm reading, it's like, no. And I can't even, like, recommend for, like the entry level, because at this point, I don't even know what's an entry level.
No,
I know.
I have this conversation all the time. Like, dark varies for different people, just like horror would, right? Like, a lot of horror movies, some people who watch them all the time would be like, that's a thriller, not a horror. Same with dark. Some people would find, like Bully by Penelope Douglas so dark, but to me, it's like, well, it's gray. Everything was kind of consensual when it actually happened. So, yeah.
Agreed, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's different, because I saw someone the other day. I was like, oh, you're new to dark romance. Here is a beginner one. And she listed Rena Kent's whole series. I was like, that's not beginner.
No.
Not beginner.
No, it's not beginner. I had someone ask me, they said they were new to dark romance. They're like, so should I start with Driftwood Daffodil? I'm like, no.
No.
No. Here, go over to After Effects. That's a little gray. And then maybe work your way. No.
That's so funny.
It is kind of hard to gauge though, like how do you like for me, I don't read any trigger warnings, so I'm just like I go in blind.
Yeah,
I think
me
the
either.
only thing that I always ask is like, is there any cheating in it? Like no matter where it is, it's like I wouldn't read it. But other than that, I was like, yeah, I'll read it, like without looking at trigger warnings. So when someone asks like, oh, what would be it? I was like, oh, I don't know. Like I don't read trigger warnings, so it's hard to like do recommendations, especially if you don't know the person.
I'm the same way. I don't read trigger warnings. I think they're spoilers for what's to come. I'd rather
exactly.
Yeah. So I pick a book based on the blurb. Actually, I don't even care about the cover. If I'm interested in the blurb, I will read the book.
Yeah.
So how often do you typically release, and how what do you have an average book that you like to achieve in a year?
Well, last year was slow for me. I had a lot of stuff happen. So I kind of took a step back. I only had one book last year, but usually I do between 4 and 6 books a year.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay.
Which is what I'm aiming for again this year.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're off to a good start because here we are, January 9th, the third book in the Driftwood Daffodil series comes out. So, good start. Okay. What would you say in all the books that you've written was the most difficult to write?
Can it be a character?
Sure.
Okay. It would probably be Abel in Twisted Abel, because he was so ADHD and all over the place, and I'm very much like a method writer, so it was really hard for me to maintain focus because I'd get distracted by shiny objects when I tried to be in his head. So that character was probably the hardest for me to write.
Oh, I didn't read that book. I think I read the other half because it was like
Yes.
was it Brooklyn Cross? Yeah. So I got a little bit of his personality in that book.
Doesn't get any better in his head.
No. Now I'm gonna have to...
Yeah, now I'm curious because I know they're kind of like you and Brooklyn have like you guys write separately, but like they're in interconnected kind of world.
Yeah.
Is that difficult to kind of like because?
Not really. Cain and Abel, we usually write together. So when we wrote Cain and Abel, we were writing together. So she would ask me, is this what Abel would do? And I'd say yes, or I'd be like, no, he's more crazy. Right? And I'd do the same with her with Cain. But with our shared worlds, it's more of like cameos of characters, and you kind of check and see like, does this fit this guy or that guy? Like she has her own Made Men series going in this universe, but that's in California and I'm in Louisiana. So other than the occasional cameo, they don't really cross over.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha. So for like new readers for you, would you be able to give like 3 words to describe your books?
Okay. Every guy I write is an asshole. 3 words. Okay. Asshole, enemies, happy end. I have yet to write.
Oh, yay. See? And if someone said, okay, these are the 3 words for T.L. Hodel, then I'd be like, sold. I'm in. Okay. So your new release, Driftwood Daffodil, Book 3, that is come out on January 9th, is the last of Nova Lee and Gio's story.
Yes.
Will the other characters get stories? And for my personal preference, I would love a Veda, Atlee, and Romeo story.
Veda's is next. And yes, Atlee, Romeo, Derry. I even have one planned for Cato.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Oh, God. I'm so, like, he really got a rough deal.
He did. Yep. He has his you'll find out why he'll get a book in the next book. So it's not really spoilery, but because I released a little piece in an Antho a while ago, Veda ends up with Gio's dad, Caesar.
Oh,
What?
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
Well, okay. All right. Okay.
There are reasons behind it, which you'll find out in there. But same with some things that still need to be tied up from Driftwood 3 can't really be done by Gio or Nova. They would have to be done by her sister or his dad.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's why, like, I could tell that Veda, and for anyone new listening, this is the sister of the female main character in the Driftwood Daffodil books 1 through 3. I feel like, and I'm so happy to hear that. So she's next.
she's next.
Yeah. Great.
Will
Sounds like
hers be? Will hers be like a trilogy as well?
I don't know. It might be one book, it might be two. I won't know until I start writing her. Yeah, Nova was supposed to be one and turned into 3.
Oh.
Beta has a lot of trauma. So if I had to guess, I'd say probably 2 books because it's her trauma's not something. It'll be an interesting write for me because it'll be the first time I can't do non-con because it would just re-traumatize her. So you just kind of slowly break past her walls.
Yeah. Yeah, so, like, the first book was, and it was a slow burn, but it gave you so much information about each person and their dynamic. So it was like almost like a roadmap to what's to come.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was great. And then book 2 really kicked in.
Yeah.
And the cliffhangers, of course.
Of course. But here it is, book 3.
Yeah. Book 3, you'll see more of Gio's protective side in book 3.
I don't want to say too much.
Well, I mean, if they've read books 1 and book 2, we wouldn't be like doing too much spoiler because I mean, you can't really read book 3 without going through 1 and 2.
No, you can't. No, and you actually get a clip. I think 5 chapters of the next book at the end of book 3, so you get Fate and Caesar.
Oh, cool. That's always like nice to like kind of like just see what's gonna happen or like what you're about to like endure again. Like once you read it,
I know.
Like prepare yourself, kind of thing.
Here's another little cliffhanger for you.
Yeah, here you go. Here's snacks. That's all you get.
Right. I think the downside to those, because sometimes I'd be like, oh, for the next book, this is like, first 2, 3 chapters, and then you get into it, and I'm just like, wait, where's the rest again? Like, you're gonna make it, right? Yeah, and then they're like, here's the link to pre-order. It's like, well, but I can't read it even if I pre-order it. You're gonna make me wait.
Yeah.
So Novely is, one of the strongest and funniest FMCs we've read. How did you come up with her character?
Actually, she came up with a funny conversation. My roommate and I were talking, what if you wrote someone who just didn't care, right? Had no aspirations in life and just didn't care. And it kind of evolved into Nova. And I always wanted to do Mafia. So I combined the bully factor. Because there are those people that just, no matter how much you pick on them, they just don't care.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Nova, that's kind of how Nova came to me. And she didn't stop for 3 books.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to find books that have like really strong FMC and where they stay strong throughout the whole, like if especially series, like the whole time. Because I've read where they'll start books 1 and 2, they're like, oh, they're strong, they're badass. And then book 3, it was like, wait, what happened? Like, like I get it, like if you're in a relationship or whatever, but like it shouldn't like diminish kind of like your personality. For me, that's just
no, it shouldn't. It should be the same as like how I feel about the guys, right? If you start off a dick, then you should still be a dick. Like your overall personality wouldn't change. Hers doesn't. So yeah. But I find too, readers are harsher on the female characters.
They are.
And you have to be careful how you write a strong female character. Because if you write one too bad, they come off like people don't like. I have one female FMC that people either love or hate, but she is literally Regina George from Mean Girls. She doesn't get better in her head. That's just who she is. And I hated her, right? So I don't blame readers for hating her too. But yeah, they're harder on the female characters, I find, than the men.
I feel like we're so used to like, like the asshole MMC. Like we always like gravitate towards that because then you're like, when you're reading, it's like, it's a romance. Eventually he's going to get better. But like if it's a female main character, it's almost like I've noticed it's either they're really strong or like, that's amazing, or they're that, I don't want to say this word, but I'm going to say like annoying. Like, I don't mind damsel in distress, but when they're like annoying, where at some point, like, okay, at some point you have to grow. Like,
yes,
we're like 80% of the book.
Yeah, get a backbone.
You need to like get a backbone or something.
And I don't like those characters either. I'm okay if they're a bit of a pushover, as long as every once in a while they have some kind of, like sarcastic remark or fight back in some way. I don't like the doormat characters.
Oh gosh, no.
Not fun.
Because it gets to a point where like, enough already. Now, the Ford family has had a rough deal. Like it's one thing after the other. So I appreciate the fact that she's like, okay, I gotta pull up my bootstraps and get it done. And she persists the whole way through. She's clumsy as hell. She's funny as hell, but she doesn't waver. And in her head, you get to see inside, like when she's like, might be afraid, but she just won't show it. And God, I wish half of us as women could be that way.
That was her defense mechanism, was just put the wall up and be strong for everyone else. Yep.
That was good.
I mean, I like those because then when you're like, the character arc, when they actually will show vulnerability, it's like, oh, she is human. Like, she's not just like, like, I'm a badass. Like, nothing, like, not, I mean, yes, it's fine. Like, where, nothing phases you. But when it's time to be like, there's a certain part in a story where they can be vulnerable, they can at least show that. So I like those kind of characters.
You do get that. You get to, in book 3, you'll get Geo having enough of Nova taking on everyone's responsibility, and he actually says something to Veda, right? Because she's the older sister. So, Nova will never stop doing what she does for her family, but he can try and intervene and lessen some of that on her.
Yeah.
I like that. Like, because sometimes I feel like when a female main character is like so strong, they have to make the male main character kind of like pull back so much, where it's like, well, I mean, we still want him to be like, I think he can still be an alpha male without having to like push her personality down kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, in all of the books that you've written, who is your favorite male main character and who is your favorite female character? And they can both be from different books.
Nova is my favorite female character. I loved writing Nova. Male. That's hard. So Micah is the first male I wrote, so he'll always have a special place in my heart.
Okay.
But I think I gotta go with Atlee, because I know a side of Atlee that you guys don't yet. So yeah.
I like him.
He has a dark side.
Pretty good qualities. Yeah.
follow-up question. Do you have like a favorite couple out of all the couples?
Oh, yeah, probably Gio and Nova. Just their banter alone was fun to write.
So great. I think I read both those books, one book a day. So in 2 days, I had those books. And then I'm like, when's the other one coming? Like, there's nothing worse than having to wait a whole year for a book.
Yeah.
I was texting her, I was like, the book 3 is not coming out until after we release the episode. I was like, you need to slow down.
Yeah.
Well, I can send you guys an arc if you don't want to wait. I'll send you an arc.
No, I can wait. I'll be patient.
We're very patient. Yeah, but like she says, like it is hard when you're like when you know it's a series, when it's one couple, there's cliffhangers, and then there's like a year to wait. I'm like, I will forget. And also I don't want to reread. As much as I love stories, sometimes it's just like I don't want to reread the whole thing just so I can,
that's why I wrote them kind of back to back. I kept going. And I found that with my first series, The Order of Ravenswolves, I did all standalones, but I found there was so much I couldn't put in trying to put it as a standalone. So I just let this one go until the story was done.
That's good.
Besides, like the book 3 that's coming out, and then we talked about like the other couples or characters that we'll have in the series. What are your future projects that you're working on that you can talk about? I guess
I have Twisted Talon, who's Abel's daughter, will be coming out this year. I'm working on a BDSM book right now, which I'm very excited about.
Nice.
Dracula. I started a retelling of Dracula. I miss the classic monsters. Every time I read a vampire or werewolf, they're all kind of fuzzy compared to what I grew up with. So I'm redoing Dracula, and I'm doing a retelling of Hansel and Gretel, crossing it with the Blue Lagoon.
That one scared the shit out of me. Hansel and Hedel, I can't speak. Hansel and Gretel was a scary story.
Yes, it was. It was terrifying.
I thought horror.
It'll be dark romance. I'm going to cross it with the Blue Lagoon, and instead of them being brother and sister, it'll be stepbrother and sister.
I like that.
But I thought that would be, why not take a fairy tale, cross it with a classic novel, and kind of redo it?
Yeah,
nice.
That would be interesting. I don't think I've read the actual fairy tale for Hansel and Gretel. I knew it, but then they did that movie with Jeremy Renner and Gemma.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, but I enjoyed it. Like, my son actually like caught a glimpse of the witch, and he was like, "What are you watching?"
The original Grimm fairy tales are terrifying. They're horrifying if you read the original fairy tales.
Yeah, I do like those. Like, I wish. I mean, I get it why they kind of retold it to her like happy ever after and stuff, but like actually, I've read here and there like snippets from like the Grimm book. I really actually loved it. And I was like, oh, this is actually what they were. I like that. Rather like that than, I mean, I guess I don't know what that says about me, but I mean, I love horror movies. So,
well, yeah, they were like dark little horror tales for children.
They really were.
Warn them not to do things. Yeah.
Come to my house of candy, and I'm going to put you in the oven.
Yeah. Terrifying.
But I think it's like the story is like pretty much like just don't go with strangers. It's like like you like the things that we grew up like being told, like like the stranger danger and stuff, but make it a little bit more to where like it actually sinks in.
Yeah, right. Don't go in strangers' houses, and don't
get in the white van.
Yeah, don't get in the white van. Don't get in the creep van. That's what I told my child. Avoid the creep van.
Right, exactly. Well,
that's so funny.
Yeah.
Are there any genres, subgenres, or specific tropes that you haven't written that you would like to still write?
I would like to do more paranormal. I love paranormal. And I would love to do an Omegaverse.
Let's do it. A lot of nodding.
Yes. I was
don't
so
understand.
confused. Time I read an Omegaverse, I didn't know what an Omegaverse was. My roommate did, thankfully. I'm reading it. I'm going, why is this girl coming so much? What is wrong with her? I don't understand. He had to explain what it was to me. But yeah, I would love to do an Omegaverse.
Yes. Marjorie, you need to read one. You don't understand when they go into heat. It's like days.
Okay. So I think like the closest to that I've read is Sherilyn Kenyon, which is like the Were Hunter series, which is part of like her Dark Hunter series. It's that kind of thing, like this werewolves mating with women, like, and they actually get like, you know, like the first time that they have sex, and then it's like they get like the mark all of a sudden, so that then they'll have certain days to where the werewolf pretty much, or the human counterpart, like they need to mate before a certain amount of days, otherwise he'll be impotent forever, and she's free to
That's a
go
twist.
wherever.
Yeah,
So she's free to go to wherever, but you know, and of course, I mean, they end up anyway being together happily ever after, of course, but like when they actually have to consummate, is like they can't separate until after midnight or something, so you're just like you're sitting there the whole time. And the thing is like, you know, as it gets closer to the date, it's kind of like the guy gets more feral and just like he just wants to,
that's kind of like Omegaverse
and stuff. And I was like, okay,
it's kind of like Omegaverse, but the woman also is like, picture a cat in heat, right? Eventually it's just like do it. Yeah.
So I mean, I guess that's as close as I've gotten for like, you know, because she always like says like, you need to like, I was like, okay, the farthest I've had for like it's Sherilyn Kenyon's shifter characters. So
it's Omegaverse is a whole experience all on its own.
I love it. I don't know if either of you get the emails from Eden Books.
Yes.
Okay. So let me just tell you about this wackadoodle shit that I read, because there's not a lot I won't read. It is a male Omegaverse.
Did it have M. Craig?
Yes.
How does that work?
You got to, in the story, it's like you have to not, and you got to get far enough up, and it's just a whole, you got to experience it. You got to read it.
I'm going to have to try one. My roommate's always talking about that. I'm like, I don't see how that would work. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like almost the same thing as like when you have a white shoes romance where there's past like 5 guys. It's like, I don't even know what acrobatics you guys are doing, where's everyone's position is. And it's like, at that point, I'm like, I'm out of the story, because now I'm like trying to figure out, like, where this happening? Like,
where's everyone? I had someone ask me, why don't I write white shoes? And I'm like, if you've read the guys I write, they wouldn't share. I couldn't get them to work together in that kind of aspect.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that's why I tell her, I was like sometimes like I don't want to read a white shoes just to read it. It has to make sense, because you're telling me all of these guys are possessive, obsessive. They have like that jealous rage, but yet they will share this one girl. So it has to like, there's that balance, like
balance out. Yeah. Like I could see maybe if like 2 of them were already friends and then there was like one guy and you kind of had to, but yeah, I'd have a hard time getting them to cooperate. I have a hard time getting my MMF guys to cooperate.
Yeah. It's true.
So going with like physical books, do you have any special editions, or do you have any plans to do any special editions?
I have special editions for the order. I don't have any here on me now. I've shipped them all out. So, but they're foil hardback and very pretty, and I wish I had one and I could show you. But But yeah, other than that, I don't have any other special editions. I want to do one for Driftwood Daffodil. There was one, Midnight Book Box did one recently. I have NSFW art for Driftwood Daffodil too.
Mhm.
So that's kind of my plan so far. I haven't delved too much into it. I'm in Canada, so shipping one book to the States is atrocious.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out a way to, I think if I put them up with my formatted signature, then my PA in the States can order them and send them out. Because, yeah, one paperback costs me $29 to send to California.
Yeah, and California's not even that.
No, it's like directly below me. Far. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, and
So
I think
you have to like maybe drive over the border, hand off the books, and say mail them.
I live in Montana, which is like an hour and a half from like Canadian border. I was kind of like, we can meet up. I'll deliver.
I'm right above you. I'm in Alberta. So, yeah, we're not far. But it is, it's insane. And we don't have anything like, what do they call it there? You have that mailing service specifically for books. I can't remember. I'll have to ask my PA, but she goes through that when she ships out books for me. We don't have anything like that. We have Canada Post or UPS.
Yeah. It's crazy. Are you planning on attending any book signings this coming year?
Yes, I'm going to West Coast signings in Victoria, BC. To take for a minute there. And I'd like to make it to Booked in Chaos this year because I got COVID. I didn't make it last year. I think that's it so far. I feel like I'm missing one. Motorcycles, Mobsters, and Mayhem. I don't know. Texas. That's in Texas.
Texas. Oh. Do they have any in Canada?
That's the one in Victoria, BC is the first one in Canada that I've been invited to. They have one that's like an hour away from my house, but they've never invited Canadian authors, which I find weird. So it's this whole thing that me and this other Canadian author are like, this is ridiculous. We should do our own. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, just like, make your
Show
own.
up.
Yeah, I kind of get it though. So if you look at the best-selling books in Canada, they're not dark romance. That doesn't seem to be as popular up here as it is in other countries. So yeah.
I wonder why. Like, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of Canadian dark romance authors.
There are, and I think what it is because we don't know it exists until we accidentally stumble upon it. Because when you scroll through Kindle here, it's romance, and you look up, you get like the regular romance books. I actually stumbled across my first dark romance. I didn't know it was a thing. So I think that's just it. It's just not a thing. Yeah. They don't know. And Kobo is the #1 e-reader up here.
I do feel like, well, I don't know if that would be anybody's case, but I feel like once you read 50 Shades, because that was like so controversial, I felt like it almost, now it's like, well, what is 50 Shades? It's kind of like this contemporary. It's just like contemporary.
Yes. I'm not a fan of 50 Shades of Grey, but it did open the door for dark romance. So
yeah, and it felt like it's like, well, if they were able to pass it to like put it as a movie worldwide, I feel like that's kind of like the entrance for I mean, granted, I don't think majority of the dark romance books that we read will pass on any TV show or movie.
No,
without like them watering it down more.
And that's why there's passion flicks. You get away, they have that, and that does a lot more than what you'll see on some.
Yeah, I think. Well, and if you look to stuff like Maxton Hall, which I know wasn't really dark at all.
Yes, I watched that. That was good.
Yeah, in 365 days, they were
that was good.
In other countries where I think the more kind of sexually explicit things is more acceptable. So
there's the one that just came out. It was, oh God, I don't know. Was it Mercedes Ron, the author? It was Culpa.
Oh, the one on Amazon.
Yes, those.
Me.
So it's just they are speaking in Spanish, but it's an American voiceover. That's like a step sibling, enemies to lovers.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I saw that. The movie, the horror is all I can think.
Yes. Yeah, like they do that. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw that. That was good too. And yeah, that was in another country. So I think, it seems.
Well, that's why I'm like surprised Netflix even. I mean, granted, yes, we see a lot of things on Netflix, but like that 365 days, that was like a little bit pushing the envelope for Netflix. Because, I mean, like there are like R18 on Netflix, but they barely, like, sure, there's nudity, but it's not like explicit like 365. I was like, when I saw that, I was like, oh, like we're actually venturing out now in this.
Well, and it's a little different where I live. So Alberta's legal age is 18. So our ratings are a little different. Like the Deadpool movie is PG-13.
Oh,
here. So yeah, the ratings are a little different. We have Tell Me Lies on the Disney Channel.
Disney Channel. I mean, I haven't seen it yet, but I mean, I've seen snippets of it. I'm like, I don't think like that's even.
No.
I mean, granted, I know Hulu owns Disney. Disney Hulu, but it's like it's almost still two different.
Well, and I think it's so whatever app you guys have that on, we don't have up here. And it seems to be whatever shows you have on there are on the Disney Channel for us. And it blows my mind. Because the first time I watched Tell Me Lies, I'm like, how is this on a Disney? This makes no sense. Yeah.
That's, that it's mind-boggling sometimes.
Yeah. Well, that brings us to the end of the episode. This was so much fun. I loved talking with you. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you for having me.
Congratulations.
Thank
on your
you.
New release.
Excited.
Yeah. We'll have to talk about it. So it's a buddy read. And thank you all for joining us today. Be sure to follow us on our socials and make sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any of our new episodes. If you have any authors you'd like to see on our podcast, you can DM us on Instagram. Well, that's all. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.